not been a success at any of them. I'm proud to say that I have been a success because 9 out of 10 startups fail. You're expected to fail. Coming into this, you should know that the odds are stacked against you and that you're going into this trying to beat the odds. So there's tips and tricks that I've learned after some of the probably worst startups ever that I'm going to share with you guys and hopefully get you to a better position and you can avoid some of these pitfalls. So I started my first company right into college. I was 18 years old, just learned how to program, and said, you know what, I can take on Alienware. I'm just going to beat them out. I can be cheaper than them. I've had this site that I bought. I can do it. I sold a total of 10 computers. I had on my team, I had one IT guy who'd never built a single computer, an electrical engineer who was a freshman like me, and myself. So none of us actually knew what we were doing, trying to do this company that we thought was just going to be huge and everybody was going to like it because it was cheap. And the things that we didn't realize was, one, we were not the right people for that startup. We should have had veterans in the industry, and we should have had people with connections to get us what we needed. And the other problem was that we had no clout. We had nothing to really tell people that we're the experts that you should be trusting when you start giving us VC money. So nobody was going to listen to us, and it was a terrible idea, and after about 6 months it folded. So I went from that, and I went into doing independent consulting, which if anybody's in the IT field means I just wanted to work for myself. I didn't want to do anybody else's stuff. And I worked for other startups, and so I worked for a guy, and he wanted me to do a bunch of code for him over a summer. So I did a bunch of code for him, and I got a call about 3 months later, and he said, so Amazon just contacted me and said that our instance failed, and yeah, so do you have that backup of all that data of that work you did? No, I don't have the backup of the data because you wanted me to do everything on the server that just crashed. So everything's gone. There was no backup solution that they implemented or anything like that. So if you're going to do it right. Back up your data. Make sure that there's like 3 copies of it on 3 different hard drives in 3 different locations, and make sure that you're not going to lose all your work. So I actually worked really sloppily on that one, and I'm going to admit it because I've learned how to be a better software developer because of it, that if you're going to do software development, there are definitely certain things that you need to do. You need to be, first off, qualified in what you're doing. Make sure that you have redundancies built in. Have version control, because I can't tell you how many times I've worked on projects where somebody's gone and hit the save button and realized they broke the entire site, and now I have to go back and figure out where it was that they did it. So I went on from the independent side. I joined a company called 1FTP, and I said, man, I've hit it. This is startup weekend. There's 3 guys on my team, and we're going to knock this thing out, and it's going to be great. And it was a really good idea. It's something, if anybody uses an FTP client to transfer files around, it was a web-based version of that lets you share the connections without sharing credentials. So we built on FTP, added extra security, and we added in a much easier administration interface. So for media companies or web design firms, it was a really good opportunity for them to make it easier to manage their credentials instead of having it in an Excel file. So it took me about 3 months to get the entire site working. All right, this is a working product. It could actually have been shipped out at that point. It looked terrible, absolutely terrible, and our designer was completely sandbagging us by not having all the design work and all the front-end things done that we needed to get. And what I realized was our designer that we had was a family man. He only was able to commit about 3 hours a week to this project, and I was committing about 40, 50 hours a week to try to get this thing out. So one thing to realize when you're selecting your teams is make sure that they're actually going to be able to put in the time that you need to get to where you want to be and the time frame you want to be. Because I've been to now 5 startup weekends, and most teams will not last through the weekend. They're going to get together, throw it together, and if it doesn't make it, that's it. They're just going to go back to their lives. And I can tell you it's going to happen. But if you have the dedication and the willingness to put in the time, you can crank out something in a very quick amount of time for relatively small dollars. Amazon will give you a cloud hosting server with a 5 gigabytes worth of data storage and enough bandwidth for just about everything you want for free for a year. So if you take advantage of something like that, your startup costs in terms of infrastructure can become next to nothing. So it really is a good time to be doing a startup in technology, because little freebies that you can get from various sites like Amazon will decrease a lot of your infrastructure. So that company folded once again. So now I'm working on a site called Shirt Hack, and it's to take the shirt buying industry and turn it into a social experience where people actually will pitch ideas for shirts that they'd like to see. and then people will vote that up and then eventually submit ideas, and the winning design actually gets made on that shirt and sold on the site. So to do that, I was approached by the guy who got the idea, and he said, I have a little bit of code and I have a little bit of something, and how long do you think we could do this? And I said, I can't manage this. It's not done right. First off, this code isn't commented. This isn't in any kind of a organized structure, and basically it's bad code from somebody who's a highly paid consultant would just cry at it. So another part is when you look at 6 months at what you did 6 months ago, you better know what you just did. You have to document everything that you did, because if you go back to it and you don't know what you're doing, you're going to do what I ended up doing, which was starting over. And I had to rebuild that entire site. How many ever months of work that they had put into it, I had to build it again from scratch because they had left me no clues on how to pick up the trail that they had started to get to their endpoint. There was no documentation of passwords for any of their stuff. There was no comments in their code. There was really nothing for me to go on, so I ended up just having to do it myself. And yeah, I can build an e-commerce system in 40 to 60 hours. That's fine, I can do that. But I shouldn't have had to do it because they already had a perfectly good platform there. So last story that I've gotten, and then I'll start doing like questions and answers. Last weekend I was down in Baton Rouge. We're doing another startup, and this startup's been around for 6 months. They still haven't shipped for some reason. I'm not sure why they hadn't shipped, because it was a web app, and I thought it was pretty simple. And they said, okay, we're gonna start going on this, and they didn't tell me any information really. They just sent me 150 mock-ups of all the different pages that they wanted, and said, here you go build it. If you're going to go startup weekend and do 150 pages, even in a web app, no way. There's no way you're going to get it done. So what we had to do is spend the first 8 hours that we were there paring that down into that MVP, that minimum viable product that shows what it is that your app actually does. And it doesn't mean that it's tied to live data. It doesn't mean that you could be shipping this now. All you need to show is that the idea is there and kind of how the steps are that the user is going to be interacting with it. If you can show that, you're pretty much, from a technology standpoint, you're in a good position. The rest of it is all business case, monetization strategies. How are you going to take that in 6 months, make that into, you're doing $100,000 in sales. So that's pretty much all my stories. I've got plenty more of useless random information if you guys want to know about infrastructure or how to take your business from 1 user to 100,000 users, things like that. So I'll just open it up to questions.
I'm working on a mobile and web application that has social networking features. How long is a realistic expectation for that to be coded from ground zero?
Okay, so the biggest, the first rule of computer science is you never reinvent the wheel. That's the first thing they're pretty much taught, yet they never let you copy code in school, don't ask me why. But if it's out there, there's a good chance that it's out there for free and you can copy it. Now you have to worry about licensing and different aspects like that, but the first thing that you should look and see is if somebody's already done it before. So let's say that you want to integrate with Facebook and you're running on PHP. There's 5 different PHP tools that you can use that will give you all the functionality of Facebook. You just plug in your API keys and start making calls. So the first thing is to try that. If you can't do that, it's going to take you a significant amount of time because another hidden gem of the technology world, documentation is huge, and APIs never ever are documented well. So if you're going to go in and integrate with Facebook, don't expect to have good documentation on how everything works, and you're going to have to do a lot of digging. So try to find something that is already there and leverage that before you start going around and coding it all yourself.
Okay.
All right. Independent or for business? Business, I work for Sagetti. We're an entirely, in Dallas anyway, we're an entirely Microsoft-based company. I've done work in .NET, ASP.NET, SharePoint mostly right now. So I'm certified SharePoint developer for what that's worth. So I've done mobile applications. I've worked in PHP, Ruby, Java, C#, C++. All these different languages. So in the personal side, I use whatever the best tool is for the job. Is basically been my philosophy. So when you're doing the tool selection, there are pros and cons to using any language or any platform or anything like that. So that's something to evaluate. Because when you go through and start crunching numbers for how much the cloud is going to cost you, Amazon may not be the best cloud. Maybe you want to go to Azure. Maybe you want to go to GoGrid or one of the other clouds. So one of the biggest thing is you always have to do your homework before you start committing yourself to a certain path. So yeah, so I've been pretty flexible in what I work in for that reason. Okay.
So you said you've had 6 different startups, and for the most part, 6 startups that have failed.
Yep.
You've got 3 more failures before you hit the 9, and then you'll make it big on the 10th. But
Okay.
I'm curious, in this whole period of time, how are you funding yourself? Like, do you do this on the side, and you have a full-time job? How do you
Yeah,
fund all
I'm
that
a
failure?
consultant full-time, so that covers all the daytime costs, and basically what I do is I do my 9 to 5, and then come home and start coding up things, come on the weekend, start coding things, and come to events like this that give me a great opportunity to just sit down and focus on something. So, because that's the one thing is, without even a demo of some type, nobody's going to talk to you. I mean, you can have a good idea, but nobody's going to actually give you money. So don't walk up to like an angel investor and say, I've got this really great idea. First thing they're going to say is, can I see it? I want to see it working. Because they don't know if you can actually deliver that. And that's one thing that I've always had a problem with is people can talk a really good game. It's real easy to say, to kind of sweet talk them and make them believe what you're wanting to do when you're selling it. But deliverables will speak 10 times what it is for you to just give them a verbal pitch.
So Jordan, how do you have any time for a social life?
What's a social life? What's this Facebook thing? I don't do social. The work-life balance is a really hard thing when you're doing the startups, especially if you're a workaholic like I am. It really helps if you set out specific blocks of time that are for your different activities. So obviously your work's going to be blocked out. Maybe on Monday through Thursday nights you're going to do some coding, Friday nights for the girlfriend, Saturday nights for your friends, and Sunday is for you. So you sit and watch movies or video games or whatever it is that you do. So I segment my time pretty aggressively. So.
More questions?
Yeah.
So you've tried a lot of different things. I have a lot of ideas, I'm sure everybody else does. Would you recommend going for one that you could see bringing in dollars the first month, or one that has like a gigantic market but no clear way of bringing in any money?
It really depends on what your strategy is. Are you trying to go for a quick exit, or are you trying to go for long-term growth, like a company that you're going to stick with? Because if you pick a company that you're looking to immediately get bought by Google or Microsoft or somebody like that, you want to show quick growth and you want to show that eventual market share and the eventual revenue that it's going to bring in. That's going to help. But in the beginning, the first thing I wanted to do is I want to quit my job. I'm going to be very honest with that. I love consulting, but I want to quit my job and work for myself. So I want to get them to immediately give me that money so I can start living on my own on it. So that's it really just depends on the pros and cons of how long you're willing to wait before you get your payout.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Jordan.